Say hello to your new best friend, a friend who doesn't gossip, who is emotionally stable, who brings a lot more contentment and far less drama into your life, who understands and values you. Who can that be? Well, that friend's you, because you're not going to find many friends like that. And the friend today that I'm going to talk to is Dr. Christine Cooper, because she knows it takes more than kindness and good intentions to build healthy, lifelong relationships. And I'm going to spill the tea. She was a former mean girl. I love that. And she made her share of mistakes before discovering the life-changing power of finding value in your life and the lives of those around you. So with that introduction, Christine, would you like to say hello to our listeners?
Well, hello, everybody. It's very nice to chat with you today.
Yeah. And we had a chat before the chat.
We
So
did.
we did. I was running a tad late. Um, so Christine, let's start this. Let's start with this personal journey about being a mean girl. What do you mean by that? How are you mean?
Um, to explain this, I want to go back in life a little bit and give you a little bit of my background, and then we
Wonderful.
can we can work into the mean girl part. So my dad, before I was born, was in the military, and then by the time I was born, he had actually transitioned into a role as a government contractor. But similar to being in the military, when you work for a government contractor, you move wherever the contract is, and so we moved around a lot. Um, I was in most schools either 1 or 2 years in length, and that was it. After that, I would move schools for whatever reason. And so um, I learned quickly how to make friends, but not in the most effective manner. Well, it was effective in making some sort of acquaintance slash relationships, and it happened typically by signaling somebody out and making cutting remarks to bring them down and make everybody else around me laugh. And of course, when you do that, technically you make friends because people don't want to be the person that gets signaled out. So they want to become your friend. But
Yeah, I
yes,
get it.
you're definitely
Yeah.
the mean person during that,
Every teen movie we've ever seen.
right?
Yeah. So you did
And
that, yeah, in high
I
school.
did do that. And because I moved around so much, I didn't really learn the consequences of doing that until I was in college and I actually stayed in one place long enough. By the time I went to college, I went to the University of New Mexico and I finished my undergrad degree there. And then I moved into professional school to become a pharmacist. And so I was there for, hold on, I'm doing the math. I was there for 8 years total. And
Mhm.
so, yes, I definitely learned the repercussions of my behavior at that point. And one of the big catalysts for wanting to make a change, like even before this had happened, I had started to feel like I wasn't the greatest person and I could make some changes and do some things. But my college best friend and I had built our friendship based on gossiping about others. Whoever wasn't in the room was fair game kind of thing.
Yep.
Except she went off to medical school and I went off to pharmacy school, and we were no longer in the same room together. And now all of a sudden, we're gossiping about each other. And as I'm sure you can imagine, that friendship fell apart in spectacular fashion.
Mhm.
Um, and so it it truly convinced me that I wanted to be a better person. I wanted to have better relationships. And ultimately, I figured out how to do that. And then I wrote a book about it.
Wonderful. And so what motivated you to write the book?
So, one of the rules I have developed for myself is I still struggle with gossip. For those who are out there thinking, oh, she's perfect now. No, I'm not. I struggle with this stuff every day too.
It's hard.
So, I, I,
Mhm.
I have little rules that I've made up for myself to help combat things. And gossip, of course, is one of my downfalls. So, to help prevent that, I allow myself to complain about something twice because we need that time and that space, and that's normal and it's human and it's okay.
Yeah.
So complain about it twice, and then I either have to do something about it or I have to let it go.
Okay.
And one of the things that I have complained about more than twice in my life is people not realizing how they get into their own way by not looking at the person in front of them as a whole person, as a human being, and not going out. And I like to say, I love the word value, but not seeing the value that that other person brings into their life and just seeing perhaps the negative things. And I have this rule. So I said, you know what? I need to go do something about this. How do I help people see where they get into their own way and how they can circumvent that? And so that's why I wrote the book.
Oh, okay. And the name of the book is?
It's called Finding Value. And the subtitle of it is A Reforming Mean Girls Guide for Creating More Meaningful Connections.
I love that. That's great. Um, you're only halfway there. I was reading your bio. You said, I'm only halfway there. So that, I mean, that makes sense, but you're honest enough to say that, because changing the patterns that you're talking about, that can be a lifelong job. I am a lot older than you, and I have 3 daughters. And, at different points in my life, I was in counseling for different things. And 2020 and different situations, I decided, well, I got depressed and I went back into counseling.
Mm-hmm.
Now, mind you, I have 3 grown daughters. And they'll always tell me things and say, now don't tell her, one of the sisters, right?
Oh.
Oh my God. Or the granddaughter, now don't tell my mother. All right. So my counselor, she said, there's a big triangling situation going on with this group. You have to not triangle. I'm like, okay, I'm trying. So, my oldest daughter told me something really juicy, but I wouldn't pass it on to either the girls or the granddaughter. And, something came up, and one of the people in this, it's not really a triangle, it's a quadrant, had a situation where it was a little danger involved, a little danger. And I hadn't said anything. And I tell my counselor, and she said, oh, I think you should have told her mother. And I said, no, wait a minute. Either I'm triangling or I'm inclusion in cahoots. Like, well, how do I figure that out? So it's not easy. It's
It
not.
is not.
And I got in trouble too for the one thing someone told me. And I went directly to the person and told them what the other person had told me. And everybody got mad at me. The person that I told said, how could you believe that about me? I said, I didn't believe it. I'm telling you what they said. And then that person that told me got mad because I told them. It's like a nightmare.
You
So,
know, gossip is one of those areas in life where it can take over life if you're not careful. I call it a black hole. Like it's one of those things where you start to gossip and then that black hole inside of you opens up and it just wants to be fed and fed and fed and fed and fed, and it never gets full. It just wants more. So it's hard. And
yes.
one of the boundaries that I have created within my relationships is for people to know that there is going to be transparency. If you tell me something, I'm going to go talk to the source about it and I'm
Yeah.
going to ask questions. And so that's the way that I have found combating that is very effective.
One of the daughters, one of the more stable, had the granddaughter tell her this thing and immediately say, don't tell my mother.
Hmm.
And this daughter said, I don't keep secrets from your mother. I
Mm-hmm.
don't keep secrets from my sister. So you need to go in there and tell her right now. And I picked up on that and I said, boy, but unfortunately, they wait till they tell you to say, don't tell. So what I have to do now is when they start telling me something, I say, I'm not keeping any secrets. Don't tell
Yep.
me anything I can't repeat.
I'm telling you now, I live a life of transparency. It's going to be out there.
And I was never good at keeping secrets. Never. So and I'm gonna learn now. I'm just gonna be upfront and say, don't tell me anything I can't repeat. Because
Hmm.
I don't want to hold that. That's negativity for me, you know? So a lot of us like doing small talk. And there's a lot of things we can talk about, and we don't have to talk about other people, right? And but there's also you talk about making small talk even better. Do
Hmm.
you know where I'm at? Okay.
Hmm.
Okay. Talk
So
about
a little background on this. I made the decision when I was 10 to be a good conversationalist, and this actually stems from my mom, which is why I like to share this story. We had just done one of our many moves, and a new friend that I had made at school had come over, and so of course her mom came over to pick her up and meet my mom and do all the things that moms do and make sure their kids are safe when they're not necessarily around, that sort of stuff. And the two of them chatted for, it was at least an hour. It was probably longer than that, but they just had this great conversation. And I was like, you know what? I need to be like my mama and I'm going to be a good conversationalist. And so I was 10 when I made that decision.
it.
And so it's a matter of, again, looking at the person in front of you. What's unique about them? What are they doing that's a little different than everybody else? And what's fun about that? Like, what sparks your interest about something? The example I use in the book is, you can probably tell my hair is purple and blue, and it currently is not orange, but it's been every color under the rainbow. And people love to walk up to me and just go, your hair is the coolest. And then they'll follow up with some sort of question like, how long does it take? Like, notice something unique and then come up with a question
Yeah.
about that unique thing. You're
Yeah.
sparking a conversation you probably wouldn't have at any other time.
I
And that's
talk
fun
to
in of itself.
I talk to everyone.
Yeah.
I talk to people in the elevator. I talk to
Hmm.
everyone. And drives my kids nuts. But today I went to get a plant and I'm looking at plants and this woman comes over and says, oh, come look at this plant. It's on sale. It's only $4. And then we talk about our gardens and everything. I talk to everybody. And with having written my books now, but the first book, Raised by Wolves, Trapped by Demons, I have my business cards. So every single time we're in a restaurant, I will strike up a conversation with my waitress or waiter.
Hmm.
I always make sure I know their name. And before I leave that restaurant, there comes an opening. I don't just dodge, like jump on them, but there comes an opening where I bring up the book and I give them a card and I write their name on it and I sign it. And my therapist said, you know what? You made their day. You don't even realize it
Hmm.
because most people don't interact with their waitress other than to say, take this back or get me something else. You acknowledge their existence. You asked
Hmm.
the name, you wrote down the name, and you gave them something. I never thought
Yes.
of it until she said that. So my
Well,
gift to gab comes in handy.
it does. And there are plenty of people out there who are like, oh my gosh, small talk is the worst. And honestly, I will agree with them because it's really hard to have those conversations with someone you just met. Like it is. What is that unique thing? Let me think it through. However, there is research that shows having even one or two of those conversations in a day actually benefits you and your mood and how you feel. And so having those conversations, even though they can be a little trying and you might need some downtime afterwards to recover from, especially, introverts out there, they need a little downtime after those. Um, they are beneficial to you. So put yourself out there a little bit, have one or two a day at least, and enjoy the conversation as much as you can.
Yeah, and I mean, my husband has Parkinson's, and as the day goes on, he talks less and less.
Hmm.
So for me, part of the reason I had the podcast was I need to talk. I need to talk, and I need to have conversations,
Hmm.
not just, do you want more coffee? And I find it so enjoyable, and I get such joy out of meeting, like you, for instance, today. Every person I meet, it's like, oh my God, like, now where do you live again? What
So I
state?
live in Alexandria, Virginia.
Virginia. So, okay, so I know Christine from Virginia, and I know Sylvia from South Africa. And that's
Oh,
all because of the internet. And I think that's a fantastic thing we have today. I mean, there's a lot of bad things about the internet, but this being able to talk to
hmm.
people, so the most interesting people, it's wonderful. I mean, and you can get your book out, talk about your book, things like
Yeah.
that. Yeah. But do you, how do you promote your book? How do you market?
Well, right now, it's available on my website. So authorccooper.com for the website. But it's available via really any major retailer through their online portal. In terms of marketing itself, I have social media. So I have Facebook and Instagram and X. And you can find me at author C. Cooper. Um, and then, of course, going on podcasts like yours to get the word out there.
And here is another, do you do reels or videos and put them on social
I
media?
sure do.
Good.
Yes.
Let me tell you why. So this first book, like I said, the name attracts a lot of people. Like, raised by wolves, trapped by demons. What's that about? Well, the wolves were my parents, and the men were the demons. Now, later in life, when I found out I had my own demons. So my one daughter got remarried in December. I hate to go back to Pennsylvania in the winter, but I had to go. And my grandson, her son, is 16, and he had two of his friends there. And I went over just to introduce myself. And I came over. I said, "Oh, you're Nick's friends." And the one boy was like, "Yeah." And the other boy turned around, like, so dramatically. And he looked at me and he went, "I can't believe this is happening." I'm like, "What?" He said, "Are you Condo Mimi?" That's my handle on
Oh my
social
goodness.
media. I said, "Yes, I am." He went, "Oh my God." And Nick, my grandson, he's laughing. He goes, "Nana, he's your biggest fan. He bought your book, he read your book, and he follows you on Instagram."
Oh,
Now,
I love that.
he's 16 years old. I'm 75. What does that tell you? The social media, the things I put out there, the title enticed him. Yes, he knew my grandson, but he went and he looked it up, and he
Hmm.
read the sample, and he got something out of it because he was very excited to meet me.
Well, and I love that your message resonated across the generations because that's
That's what I mean.
important.
Yes, and he inspired me so much. I was in the middle of writing my third book, which is a workbook for healing from trauma and abuse.
Okay.
And so far, all of my stuff has been geared towards women. And after meeting that young man, I said, wait a minute, you know, males have trauma and abuse in their life too. I totally threw the draft away. I threw it away and I started over and I wrote it. You're definitely non-gender, gay, male, female. And that was because of him. And on the first page of the book, I have it dedicated. I put his name in there.
That's
Yeah,
so great. I love that story.
yeah.
Have you heard from him about it, or is it? I should ask, is it
Well,
out there? I haven't checked yet, but
we took a selfie, and I at the wedding, And I said, oh, I'll give you my phone number. You could send it to me. Nick grabbed the phone out of his hand and said, you're not getting my grandmother's phone number. So, and on Instagram, he has one of those accounts where he doesn't post. You know, a lot of times their parents too, they don't want them to post. So he follows me, he put likes, you know, things like that. But oh, I love that. And it just inspired me that, you know what, you're supposed to be doing this at this late time in your life because look at this.
Mm-hmm.
Verse is telling you people need to hear things, you know. That story, I love it myself.
As you should. It's fantastic.
It is. So let's talk about, because I'm very good at this, nonverbal cues.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, like I'm very good at reading the room, let's say. Some people are not, but I'm very good at it. So what can you talk about with that? With
So
nonverbal?
I do nonverbal cues are big clues as to how someone feels about things. And I always give the little caveat that what I talk about is stereotypical. You have to take into consideration the person as you know them,
Mhm.
and then maybe add these as a layer onto it. Nevertheless, it's fun and fascinating to see how people are responding and moving their bodies and saying things without actually saying anything. So for all you guys out there, if you're curious if a woman is trying to distance herself from you, watch where she puts a piece of paper, because if it's in between you, then she is trying to distance herself from you. If someone's feet are pointed towards you, they are typically trying to pay attention to you.
Mhm.
Or you are considered the most important person in the room to them. So little things like that are just
Yeah,
fascinating to me.
and touch, because you know, like I'm a toucher, so if I'm talking to someone and I'm comfortable with them, you know, I might touch their arm as I'm
Mm-hmm.
talking, something like that. So if it was back in the day when I was looking for men or whatever, you know, that's also a sign that she is responsive to you. Like if she's gonna touch your arm, then that means, okay, I can keep talking to this girl. Right?
Right.
Real funny. I have to tell you a really funny story real quick. Back in the day, as I say, I went into this bar and they had dance music, etc. I wasn't married at the time, and the bouncer there, the doorman, whatever, you know, he had a crush on me, whatever. I had nothing in common with him. So I'm talking to him, and this other guy came in who I never met, but it was like chemistry off the charts, you know? And I could tell both ways. Right. So we're standing here, the three of us, and a slow song started to play. And the guy that I didn't like said to me, oh, I want to dance with you. And I turned to the other guy and said, I want to dance with you. Very forward of me.
Yes, very.
And I did. And we had a relationship for quite a few months. But I'm just saying, like, there's things like that other guy, he didn't get it.
Mm-hmm.
That when this guy walked in, the whole vibe changed. But he wasn't aware of it. You know, he's only in his own little
Paying
compartment.
attention to himself, which there
Yeah.
there is certainly some value in making sure that you are taken care of, but
Yeah.
also looking outside of yourself tells you
Yeah.
so much about the world and about the people that you're interacting with,
Yeah. She changed on that guy when he walked in. She changed her whole
right?
manner. He didn't notice. I just have these little, they're in my book. You can read all my silly stories. So let's go into disagreements because
Mm-hmm.
it's go through life. You're not going to agree with everybody. And right now, the whole country is like split in half and disagreeing about things. Now, in that situation, I read the room, and if I think the person is on the other side of my viewpoint, I kind of avoid them. I don't really want to talk to them because it's only going to upset me. That's politics. They used to say two things you shouldn't talk about, religion and politics,
Hmm.
because whatever their views are, they're strong. And if your views are different, you're going to end up arguing. So let's say you get into a regular disagreement, not one of those big ones. So how do you handle that? How do you handle that, Christine?
There are several different ways. The very first thing I want to say when it comes to disagreements, though, is to remember to that your opinions and your judgments of a situation are not actually who you are. You can step to the side from those in your mind, anyway, of course, step to the side and allow yourself to think through what the other person is presenting to you. What is rational about what they're saying? You may, like, your opinions may not necessarily think that they're rational, but ask them questions. Why do they think this way? Why is this important to them? What is their thought process that they have taken to get to where they are in this moment? And you can, when you're not encased in your thoughts and opinions of a certain thing, and you've allowed yourself to just temporarily step to the side from those, then you are giving them and yourself the space to take in this new information. And you can also be calm about it. And when you're calm, your emotions aren't thinking for you, you are thinking for you. And that's one of our big
That's true.
goals.
That's so true. And I used to be not always calm when I was younger. I had to learn the hard way. But talking, like you were saying, and communication and listening to their side of the story. And I'm very blessed that my granddaughter, who's 25, um, respects my opinion enough that we have had some very good conversations lately. She's not doing exactly what I think she should be doing, you know. Um, but she is asking questions about her own
Hmm.
behavior and my opinion of it. So to me, that's like, okay, that's progress. She's at least questioning what
Yes,
she's doing.
self-reflection is important to all
Like,
of us.
but so I don't say, this is what you have to do. This is what you have to do. You have to do this. I go, this is what I did when I was in that situation, you know.
Hmm.
So that helps. And I kind of, go from there. And we just get along really well, thank heavens. And my
Which,
husband and I, what, that was my granddaughter. You can ask me which,
yes,
yeah.
and it's that can be hard in that situation. And let's be honest, we all want, when we give advice, we want people to instantly take it.
Especially
Like,
when it's your
I'm giving
kids.
you gold, right?
Yeah. Don't you see what
Yes. However, we have to remember that we don't have to live with the consequences of those actions. So we can provide this advice, but the person who is actually having to live with the consequences needs to make the final decision, which may be quite different than what we said. And
Yes.
so they have to feel solid in who they are to not live a life full of regrets.
And the thing is too, like well, I've been sober for 33 years, 33 years.
Fantastic.
And yeah, but I sponsored a lot of people too. And I had addiction in my family, which almost
Hmm.
everybody does. Don't let them say they don't. There's somebody, a cousin, a brother, a father, somebody. Um, and that is so hard to deal with because you could give them pearls of wisdom. They're not going to take it.
Hmm.
Nothing's going to change until they hit bottom, you know. And that's very hard for the person that loves them, but you still talk to them. You still talk to them. I've done that. And I've seen people not do what they should do over and over. And then one day they finally wake up. And I had someone tell me she had relapsed. And I hadn't seen her for years. And I was at a meeting. She was there and she's all excited. She came over to me and she said, when I was relapsed back out there, my darkest moments, I would hear your voice and those things that you told me. Now, I'm getting chills again, but there you go. Those conversations that were loving
Hmm.
and definitely for her, about her, in her good interest. They stuck. They
And
stuck.
one of the ways that's very beneficial, and I know you can speak to this much more than I can, but in recovering from things like addiction and even depression, is to have a solid social network where you feel important and you
Yeah,
feel included and you
yeah.
feel that you have the support you need to get to the next step.
That's why AA with the whole meetings built in,
Hmm.
there's other people copied it because it works. So they have Overeaters Anonymous and anything you could think of. There's a 12-step group because of that, the community and the talking. That's very important, very important. Um, so listen, we talked about value, we talked all kinds of communications. And what about lifting others to lift yourself? Like I think I kind of alluded to that when I talked about being a sponsor. So being a
Hmm.
mentor. So
Yep.
I was a mentor, and when you're in that situation, it's not just going to be about the alcohol or drugs. It's going to be what is making them unhappy and wanting to use. So you are mentoring them, showing
Yes.
them the way. So what's your thoughts on that?
So the best way I can explain this is actually thinking about it in terms of education.
Mhm.
Somebody many hundreds or thousands of years ago figured out how to do something, and we have all been taught how to do that through school, or maybe we learned it through work, or however we may have learned it. We've gained this education because somebody else learned it. And so when we're taught, we're not going to stumble across the same issues that that person had. We're going to stumble across new ones because we already know the smooth path. Somebody's already smoothed it out for us. They've shown us that way. So now that we're learning something new and we're making our stumbles, why don't we turn around and help somebody and educate them and smooth their path out a little bit? And when you do that, and you start to look around your community, and that has a ripple effect where you've done it for somebody and now they're doing it for somebody and now they're doing it for somebody else, and all of a sudden there's much nicer areas in your community and
Yeah.
interactions of people that you work with. And so yes, you've lifted somebody else, you've done some hard work, and then you help somebody through it, but they've done some hard work and they've helped somebody through it, and it's just this ripple effect that
And
eventually comes back to you.
you just explained the 12th step of
Yeah.
AA. And it is. It's all, A is about talk therapy. It's about
Mhm.
talking to people. It's about trusting someone to tell them things that bother you so you can get rid of them. And then helping other people, passing it on. That's why it's
Yes.
been successful for like 100 years, I think, by now. Coming up on, I think it was in the 30s, 1930s. So yeah, it
Oh,
works. Yeah,
yeah.
it works. So this was interesting. Anything else you want our listeners to know about how they can change their style if they want to be better at conversation or talking to people?
I'm going to back it up a little bit from conversation. So I would say the very first thing that all of us need to make sure that we are good at is kind of contradictory to everything we've been talking about. However, it's very, very important, and it is taking care of yourself. So making sure you have established boundaries, you are sticking to those boundaries, you know what those boundaries are, because that's important as well. Like we have to figure that out for ourselves and then stick to them. And the reason why I say that that's important is because anything that happens after that, so our conversations that we have out in the world, or any sort of relationships that we develop, whether through work or romantic relationships or our friendships, all of those, if they are going to be good to you, need to fall in those boundaries. And so I think that's really important to address and make sure we discuss a little bit.
Yeah. And two things I'm going to end on. One is, even though we're talking about talking, an
Hmm.
important part of that is listening.
Absolutely.
I had to learn about what's called active listening. Active listening, meaning you're not just like they're in your zone and they're talking, you are actually listening to what they're saying. And that's important. And the other thing I'm going to say is we were on a couples retreat, my husband and I, and the Monsignor, whoever, it was a Catholic thing. He said, here's how you'll have a successful marriage. Make an agreement that you can only have 3 arguments in the entire marriage. And anytime, right? And anytime you feel like arguing, stop and say, do I want this to be one of the 3? We only had 1. And we're married 35 years.
Wow.
Yeah. How's that? Pretty good, right? So we'll leave them with that. Wonderful. We had a great conversation. At least I think we did. Right?
I loved it. Yes.
Fun. I'll have to have you back again. And I'm going to put your notes at the end here so people can find you.
That
All
would
right.
be fantastic.
Lovely
I
talking.
love your stories. They're so much fun to hear.
Well, read my book. I'll tell you what, I have
Yeah.
your email. I'm going to send you a digital copy of my first book, if you'd
Okay.
like. All right.
That would be amazing. Thank you.
All right. We're going to get cut off soon. So I have to say goodbye, but I'm going to send you an email and I'm going to send you my book. And please put a review on Amazon. All right, listeners, I hope you were listening so that now you know how to talk.